The water was still, a mirror of secrets under the Tennessee sun, but my heart thundered like a storm was coming. I sat in the old fishing boat, rod in hand, pretending to care about the bass we'd never catch, while Caleb's laughter echoed across the lake, sharp and reckless. I'd known him my whole life, but today something felt different, dangerously, impossibly different. Ethan Harper, that's me, the quiet kid from Willow Creek who'd always been better at sketching dreams than living them. At 22, I was still figuring out who I was, especially the part of me I'd buried deep, the part that loved men, loved him, in a way I could never say out loud. Caleb Monroe, my best friend since we were 6, was everything I wasn't: bold, broad-shouldered, the kind of guy who could charm anyone with a wink and a grin. He was straight as an arrow, or so I thought, and I'd spent years convincing myself that my feelings for him were a secret I'd take to my grave. We'd been coming to this lake every summer since we were kids, just the two of us, fishing poles and cheap beer, talking about everything and nothing. But this time, as we drifted out to the middle of the water, the air felt heavy, like it was holding its breath. Caleb was quieter than usual, his blue eyes flickering with something I couldn't read. "You ever feel like you're hiding something from the world, Ethan?" he asked, his voice low, almost lost in the lap of the waves. I froze, my grip tightening on the fishing rod. "What do you mean?" I managed, my heart racing. He didn't answer right away, just cast his line into the water, his jaw tight. I watched the ripples spread, each one pulling me deeper into a question I wasn't ready to face. Growing up in Willow Creek wasn't easy for someone like me. It was a small town, the kind where everyone knew your business and judged it twice on Sunday. My mom, a nurse with a heart too big for her own good, had always told me to be true to myself. But that was easier said than done when myself was something the town wouldn't accept. I'd come out to her last year, in a tear-soaked confession in our kitchen, and she'd hugged me tight, promising to love me no matter what. But I hadn't told anyone else, not my dad, who'd rather talk about football than feelings, and definitely not Caleb. Caleb, though, had always been my safe place. We'd grown up climbing trees, stealing cookies from his mom's bakery, and dreaming of escaping this town for something bigger. He was headed to Nashville in the fall, a scholarship to play football at Vanderbilt, while I was stuck working at the local hardware store, saving up for art school I wasn't sure I'd ever afford. The thought of him leaving twisted something in my chest, but I pushed it down, like always. "Ethan, you're zoning out again," Caleb said, snapping me back to the boat. He was grinning now, but it didn't reach his eyes. "What's got you so lost in that head of yours?" "Nothing," I lied, casting my line to avoid his gaze. The truth was, I was drowning in him. His voice, his laugh, the way his t-shirt clung to his shoulders in the heat. I'd spent years building walls around my feelings, but out here, with nothing but water and sky, those walls felt paper thin. He leaned back, cracking open a beer, and handed me one. "To our last summer," he said, clinking his can against mine. His words hit like a punch. Last summer. After this, he'd be gone, and I'd be left with nothing but memories and a heart I couldn't trust. The day wore on, the sun climbing higher, the air thick with humidity. We didn't catch a single fish, but that wasn't the point. It never was. It was about us, about the way we could sit in silence and still understand each other. Or at least, I thought we did. As the afternoon faded into a golden haze, Caleb grew restless, fidgeting with his rod, his eyes darting to me and then away. "You ever think about what you'd do if you could be anyone else?" he asked suddenly, his voice rough. I looked at him, startled. His face was flushed, not just from the sun, and his hands were clenched tight. "Sometimes," I said carefully, "but I'm trying to figure out how to be me first." He nodded, like he understood, but his eyes were distant, fixed on the horizon. "I've been thinking about that a lot lately," he said, almost to himself. "Who I am, who I want to be." My pulse quickened. This wasn't the Caleb I knew, the one who shrugged off anything heavy with a joke. This was someone else, someone carrying a weight I hadn't seen before. I wanted to ask, to push, but fear clamped my mouth shut. What if I was wrong? What if I was reading too much into this, projecting my own desperate hopes onto him? The boat rocked gently as a breeze picked up, stirring the water. Caleb set his rod down and turned to me, his expression raw, unguarded. "Ethan," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "There's something I need to tell you." My heart stopped. The world narrowed to his face, his eyes, the way his lips parted like he was about to say something that would change everything. I didn't know what was coming, but I knew it would break me, or set me free. The silence between us stretched like a taut line, ready to snap. Caleb's words hung in the air, heavy with promise, and I couldn't breathe, couldn't move, as I waited for him to speak. The lake, the boat, the whole world seemed to hold its breath with me. "I've been lying to myself," he said finally, his voice cracking. "And to you." He looked down at his hands, knuckles white against the edge of the boat. "I'm not who everyone thinks I am, Ethan. I'm not straight." The words hit me like a wave, cold and overwhelming, pulling me under. I stared at him, my best friend, the boy I'd loved in secret for years, and tried to process what he'd just said. Caleb, the golden boy of Willow Creek, the guy who'd dated half the cheerleading squad, wasn't straight? My mind reeled, torn between hope and disbelief. "Caleb, what are you saying?" I asked, my voice barely audible over the sudden rush of wind across the lake. He met my eyes, and for the first time, I saw fear in them, raw, unguarded fear. "I've been fighting it for years," he said, "telling myself it's just a phase, that I could push it down and be the guy everyone expects. The football star, the good son, the guy who's got it all figured out. But I don't. I'm gay, Ethan, and I'm terrified." My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. I wanted to reach out, to tell him I understood, that I'd been hiding too, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I just sat there, staring at the boy who'd been my everything, now bearing his soul in a way I'd never imagined. "I didn't want to tell you like this," he went on, his voice shaking. "Out here, in the middle of nowhere. But I couldn't keep it in anymore. Not with you." He swallowed hard, his eyes searching mine. "You're the only one I trust with this." The weight of his confession settled over me, heavy and warm, like a blanket I didn't know I needed. "Caleb," I said, my voice steadying, "I'm glad you told me. I'm not straight either." His eyes widened, and for a moment, we just stared at each other, two boys in a boat, stripped bare by the truth. Then he laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound that broke the tension. "You're kidding me," he said, running a hand through his hair. "All this time we've both been—" "Yeah," I said, a smile tugging at my lips despite the chaos in my chest. "All this time." The boat rocked as he leaned forward, his face inches from mine. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice soft, almost pleading. "Why didn't you tell me?" I shot back, but there was no anger in it, just years of unspoken longing finally finding a voice. We laughed again, nervous and raw, and for a moment, it felt like we were kids again, sharing secrets under the stars. But this was different. This was bigger. The air between us crackled with possibility, with danger, with the kind of hope that could burn you if you got too close. The sun was dipping lower now, painting the lake in shades of orange and pink. Caleb's hand brushed mine as he reached for his beer, and I felt a jolt, like lightning under my skin. He didn't pull away, and neither did I. Our fingers stayed there, touching, tentative, testing the waters of something new. "What do we do now?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked out at the lake, his expression unreadable. "I don't know," he said finally. "But I know I don't want to keep pretending. Not with you." My heart soared and sank at the same time. This was everything I'd ever wanted, but it was terrifying. Willow Creek wasn't a place where two guys could just be together, not without consequences. I thought of my dad, of Caleb's teammates, of the whispers that would follow us like shadows. But in that moment, with his hand still touching mine, none of it mattered. "Let's just stay here for a while," I said, my voice soft. "Just us." He nodded, and we sat there, the boat drifting aimlessly as the world around us faded away. For the first time, I felt like I could breathe, like I wasn't carrying the weight of my secret alone. But even as we sat there, a storm cloud loomed on the horizon, dark and ominous, a reminder that the world wouldn't let us stay in this moment forever. As the sky darkened, Caleb's phone buzzed, shattering the quiet. He glanced at it, his face tightening. "It's my dad," he said, his voice flat. "He's expecting me at the team barbecue tonight." The mention of his dad brought reality crashing back. Coach Monroe was a legend in Willow Creek, a man who lived for football and expected his son to follow in his footsteps. If he ever found out about Caleb, about us, I didn't want to think about what would happen. "You should go," I said, though every part of me wanted him to stay. "Yeah," he said, but he didn't move. His eyes locked on mine, and for a heartbeat, I thought he might lean closer, might bridge the gap between us. But then he pulled his hand away, and the moment was gone. We rowed back to shore in silence, the weight of our confessions settling between us. As we tied the boat to the dock, Caleb turned to me, his expression fierce. "This isn't over, Ethan," he said. "Whatever this is, we'll figure it out. Together." I nodded, my throat tight. "Together," I echoed, hoping I could believe it. The barbecue was in full swing by the time we got back to town, the air thick with the smell of grilled meat and the sound of laughter. Caleb's dad's house was packed with his teammates, their families, and half of Willow Creek, all gathered to celebrate the start of the football season. I lingered on the edges, clutching a soda, watching Caleb play the part of the golden boy, laughing, clapping shoulders, charming everyone. But every now and then, his eyes found mine across the crowd, and I saw the truth he was hiding. I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd crossed a line out on that lake, one we couldn't uncross. My heart was still racing from his confession, from the way his hand had brushed mine, from the promise of together. But here, surrounded by people who judge us in a heartbeat, that promise felt fragile, like a dream you know you'll forget when you wake up. "Hey, Ethan." Sarah, Caleb's younger sister, bounced over, her ponytail swinging. "You're looking all serious again. What's up?" "Just thinking," I said, forcing a smile. Sarah was one of the few people in town who didn't make me feel like an outsider, but even she didn't know the real me. Not yet. She dragged me over to a table piled with food, chattering about her college plans, but my eyes kept drifting to Caleb. He was talking to his dad now, Coach Monroe's hand heavy on his shoulder, his voice booming about the upcoming season. Caleb nodded along, but I could see the tension in his jaw, the way his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. As the night wore on, I slipped away to the backyard, needing air, needing space. The stars were out, bright against the inky sky, and I leaned against a tree, trying to make sense of everything. Caleb was gay. He trusted me with his truth, and I'd given him mine. But what did that mean? Could we really be something more, or was this just a fleeting moment, a spark that would burn out under the weight of the world? "Hey," Caleb's voice startled me, and I turned to find him standing there, hands in his pockets, his face half lit by the glow from the house. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, though I wasn't sure it was true. "Just needed a break." He stepped closer, his eyes searching mine. "I meant what I said out there, Ethan. About figuring this out together. I don't know how, but I want to try." My breath caught. "Caleb, this town, it's not exactly welcoming to people like us." "I know," he said, his voice low. "But I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of being someone I'm not." Before I could respond, a shout from the house broke the moment. "Caleb, get in here, man," one of his teammates called, and he sighed. running a hand through his hair. "I'll find you later," he said, his voice urgent. "Don't disappear on me, okay?" I nodded, watching him jog back to the party, my heart a mess of hope and fear. I wanted to believe him, wanted to believe we could carve out a space for ourselves. But the reality of Willow Creek loomed large. I thought of my dad, who'd barely spoken to me since I came out to my mom, and of Coach Monroe, who'd once called a player soft for crying after a loss. This wasn't a place for softness, for vulnerability, for love like ours. The rest of the night passed in a blur. I stayed on the fringes, watching Caleb shine, hating how easy it was for him to slip back into his role. But every glance he sent my way felt like a lifeline, a reminder that something had shifted between us. When the party finally wound down, he found me again, pulling me aside near the garage. "Come over tomorrow," he said, his voice low. "We need to talk. Really talk." I nodded, my pulse racing. "Okay." As I walked home under the stars, my mind was a storm of possibilities. I imagined telling Caleb everything. How I'd loved him for years, how I'd dreamed of a life where we didn't have to hide. But I also imagined the consequences, the looks, the whispers, the way this town could turn on you in an instant. I didn't know if I was brave enough for that, but for Caleb, I wanted to try. The next morning, I woke to a text from him. "Meet me at the lake." Noon. My heart leapt. I spent the morning pacing, sketching in my notebook to calm my nerves, drawing Caleb's face from memory, his sharp jaw, his piercing eyes, the way he looked at me like I was the only thing that mattered. By the time I got to the lake, my hands were shaking. He was already there, sitting on the dock, his fishing rod beside him. "No boat today," he said with a small smile. "Just us." We sat side by side, our feet dangling over the water, and for a while, we didn't speak. The silence was comfortable, familiar, but charged with everything we hadn't said yet. Finally, he turned to me, his expression serious. "Ethan, I don't know what this looks like," he said, "but I know I feel something for you. Something real. And I don't want to lose that." My heart stopped. "Caleb, I've felt something for you for years," I admitted, my voice trembling. I never thought you'd feel the same." His eyes softened, and he reached for my hand, his fingers warm against mine. "I didn't know either," he said. "Not until recently. But now that I do, I can't ignore it." We sat there, hands clasped, the world falling away. For the first time, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, we could have this. But as the sun climbed higher, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, something that would test us in ways we weren't ready for. The days that followed were a blur of stolen moments and secret glances. Caleb and I met at the lake whenever we could, away from the eyes of Willow Creek, where we could be ourselves. We talked for hours about our fears, our dreams, the lives we wanted beyond this town. He told me about the pressure he felt from his dad, the weight of being the perfect son, the perfect athlete. I told him about my art, about the sketches I'd never shown anyone, the ones that were all of him. But every moment we spent together was tinged with danger. Willow Creek was small, and secrets didn't stay buried long. I saw it in the way people looked at me sometimes, like they could sense I was different. Caleb felt it too, though he hid it better. He was still the star of the football team, still the guy everyone loved, but I could see the strain in his eyes, the way he flinched when his dad clapped him on the back and called him son. One afternoon, we were at the lake again, lying on a blanket under a willow tree, the air warm and heavy with summer. Caleb's head rested on my chest, his breath steady, and for a moment, I let myself believe we could stay like this forever. But then his phone buzzed, and he sat up, his face paling as he read the message. "It's Sarah," he said, his voice tight. "She saw us yesterday by the dock. She's asking questions." My stomach dropped. Sarah was sweet, but she was still a teenager, still part of this town. If she suspected something, it wouldn't be long before others did too. "What did you tell her?" I asked, my voice shaking. Nothing yet, he said, running a hand through his hair. But she's not stupid, Ethan. She knows something's up. We sat in silence, the weight of her words settling over us. I wanted to tell him it would be okay, that we could handle this, but the truth was, I was terrified. I'd seen what happened to kids like us in towns like this. Whispers, rejection, worse. I thought of my dad, who still hadn't looked me in the eye since I came out to my mom. I thought of Coach Monroe, who'd once thrown a kid off the team for not fitting in. We have to be careful, I said finally. At least until we figure out what we're doing. Caleb nodded, but his jaw was tight. I don't want to hide forever, Ethan, he said. I want to be with you. Out in the open. Like it's normal. It is normal, I said fiercely, grabbing his hand. But this town, they don't see it that way. He looked at me, his eyes fierce. Then we'll make them see it. Or we'll leave. Go somewhere we can be ourselves. The idea of leaving Willow Creek, of starting over somewhere new, was thrilling and terrifying all at once. I'd dreamed of it for years, but now, with Caleb, it felt possible. Where would we go? I asked, my voice soft. Anywhere, he said, a smile breaking through. Nashville maybe, or New York. Somewhere big, where no one cares who we love. I laughed, the sound shaky but real. You'd hate New York, I teased. Too many people, not enough fishing. He grinned, pulling me close. I'd figure it out, as long as I'm with you. For a moment, we were just two boys in love, dreaming of a future that felt within reach. But reality came crashing back that night, when Caleb's dad called him into the living room after dinner. I wasn't there, but Caleb told me about it later, his voice hollow over the phone. He knows something, Caleb said. Sarah didn't say anything outright, but she must have hinted at it. He kept asking why I've been so distracted, why I'm not focused on football. He said I'm letting the team down. My heart sank. What did you say? I lied, he said, his voice breaking. Told him I'm just stressed about school. But Ethan, he's not stupid. If he finds out. He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't have to. Coach Monroe wasn't just Caleb's dad. He was the heart of this town, the man who decided who belonged and who didn't. If he found out about us, it wouldn't just be Caleb's future at stake. It would be mine too. The next day, I went to work at the hardware store, my mind a mess of worry and hope. I was restocking shelves when my dad walked in, his face grim. Ethan, he said, his voice low. We need to talk. My stomach twisted. My dad and I hadn't had a real conversation in months, not since I'd come out. He'd always been distant, more comfortable with his tools than his feelings, but this was different. He looked scared. I heard something, he said, his eyes not meeting mine. About you and Caleb Monroe. People are talking, son. My blood ran cold. What are they saying? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He shook his head. Doesn't matter. What matters is you being careful. This town, it's not kind to people who are different. I wanted to scream, to tell him I wasn't ashamed of who I was, of who I loved. But the fear in his eyes stopped me. For the first time, I realized he wasn't just ashamed of me. He was worried. Worried about what this town would do to me. That night, I met Caleb at the lake again, our safe haven. But as we sat there, holding hands under the stars, I couldn't shake the feeling that our time was running out. The storm was coming, and we were right in its path. The storm broke the next morning, not in the sky, but in Willow Creek. I woke to a text from Caleb, meet me at the diner. Now, my heart raced as I threw on clothes and ran out the door, the weight of my dad's warning still heavy in my chest. The diner was quiet, just a few early risers nursing coffee. Caleb was in a corner booth, his face pale, his hands wrapped around a mug like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. It's out, he said as I slid in across from him. Someone saw us at the lake. They told my dad. My world tilted. Who? I asked, my voice shaking. Doesn't matter, he said, his eyes dark. Half the team knows by now. My dad, he lost it, Ethan. Said I'm throwing my life away, that I'm a disgrace to the family. I reached for his hand, but he pulled back, glancing around the diner like he expected someone to jump out and attack us. "What do we do?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I don't know," he said, his voice breaking. "I thought I was ready for this, but I'm not. I'm scared, Ethan." "So am I," I admitted, my heart aching for him, for us. "But we don't have to do this alone. We have each other." He looked at me, his eyes wet with unshed tears. "I don't know if that's enough," he said, and those words cut deeper than anything else. We sat in silence, the weight of the town pressing down on us. I thought of my mom, who'd promised to love me no matter what, and of Sarah, who might still be on our side. But against the tide of Willow Creek's judgment, it felt like we were fighting a losing battle. That afternoon, Caleb's dad called a team meeting, and I knew it wasn't about football. Caleb didn't want me there, but I went anyway, hiding in the back of the gym, my heart pounding. Coach Monroe stood at the front, his face like stone, as he addressed the team. "I've heard rumors," he said, his voice booming, "about one of our own. And I'm here to tell you that kind of behavior won't be tolerated. Not on my team. Not in my town." The room was silent, but I could feel the eyes on Caleb, who stood with his teammates, his face pale but defiant. I wanted to run to him, to stand by his side, but my feet were rooted to the ground. After the meeting, I found him outside, leaning against the wall, his fists clenched. "I'm done," he said, his voice low. "I'm not playing for him anymore. I'm not living for him anymore." "Caleb," I said, my heart breaking, "what are you going to do?" He looked at me, his eyes fierce with determination. "I'm leaving. Tonight. I can't stay here, Ethan. Not like this." My breath caught. "Where are you going?" "Nashville," he said. "I've got some money saved. I'll figure it out." I stared at him, torn between fear and hope. "What about us?" I asked, my voice trembling. He stepped closer, his hands cupping my face. "Come with me," he said, his voice urgent. "We can start over, Ethan. Together." My heart soared, but reality crashed in. My mom, my job, my dreams of art school, they were all here in Willow Creek. But so was the judgment, the fear, the life I'd never fit into. I looked into Caleb's eyes and saw a future I'd never dared to dream of. One where we could be ourselves, no hiding, no shame. "Okay," I said, my voice steady. "I'll come with you." His smile was like the sun breaking through the clouds. He pulled me into a hug, fierce and desperate, and for the first time, I felt like we might actually make it. That night, we packed our bags in secret, leaving notes for our families. Mine was short, just a promise to my mom that I'd call soon, that I was okay. Caleb's was longer, an apology to Sarah, a goodbye to the life he'd known. We took his old pickup truck and drove west, the stars guiding us toward Nashville, toward a new beginning. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. We'd face challenges, judgment, maybe even heartbreak. But as I looked at Caleb, his hand in mine as the miles stretched out before us, I knew we'd face it together. That day on the lake, when he'd done the unthinkable and told me his truth, had changed everything. It had given us the courage to love, to live, to be free. And as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, I realized something. We weren't just running away. We were running towards something, a life where love didn't have to hide, where we could be whole. Together, we'd fish for new dreams in waters wide enough for both of us.